Psalm 35, the Lord is defender of the righteous. Psalm 35 in the Book of Psalms is an imprecatory psalm that gives voice to the suffering of an innocent person facing hostility, slander, and betrayal. It is a passionate prayer that calls upon God to act as defender, judge, and deliverer in the midst of unjust persecution. Rather than encouraging personal retaliation, the psalm expresses the struggle of entrusting deep injustice to God while refusing to take vengeance into one's own hands. The opening verses portray God as a divine defender who actively intervenes on behalf of the afflicted. The psalmist appeals to God in legal and military imagery, asking him to take up the cause like an advocate and warrior. This reflects the conviction that ultimate justice does not rest in human hands but in God's righteous judgment. The language of shields, weapons, and pursuit of enemies functions as poetic expression of divine protection rather than human aggression, emphasizing reliance on God as the one who vindicates the wronged. As the psalm continues, it contains strong appeals for the downfall and confusion of those who act unjustly. These statements are best understood as cries for justice arising from real suffering, including betrayal and false accusation. The emotional intensity reflects the experience of being wronged rather than a settled desire for personal revenge. In this reading, the psalm gives space for honest lament, allowing the faithful to bring anger and grief before God while still entrusting judgment to Him. It also anticipates later ethical teaching that calls believers to refrain from retaliation and instead leave justice in God's hands. Amid these petitions, the psalm shifts into expressions of confidence and joy in God's deliverance. Even while surrounded by conflict, the psalmist anticipates rejoicing in God's salvation. This reveals a deep trust that divine intervention will ultimately prevail. Joy is not dependent on present circumstances but is rooted in confidence in God's character as deliverer and sustainer of the oppressed. The psalm then describes in detail the experience of unjust treatment. False witnesses rise, hostility replaces kindness, and suffering is met with rejection. The psalmist emphasizes his own innocence in response to these accusations, highlighting the pain of undeserved suffering. This section resonates with the broader biblical theme of the righteous sufferer, and is often seen as foreshadowing the innocent suffering later associated with Christ. At the same time, it validates the experience of those who suffer injustice and brings that experience into prayer before God. In the midst of this lament, the psalm includes urgent pleas for divine intervention. The question "how long?" expresses the tension between present suffering and anticipated deliverance. Yet even these cries are paired with promises of thanksgiving, showing that petition naturally leads to worship. The expectation is that God's intervention will not only bring personal relief but also result in public acknowledgement of His justice and goodness. The latter portion of the psalm intensifies the appeal for justice against deceitful and malicious opponents. These verses are not understood as personal commands for hostility but as expressions of longing for moral order in a world marked by wrongdoing. The psalm gives voice to the desire for wrongdoing to be exposed and rectified, while still maintaining the overarching biblical principle that vengeance belongs to God alone. The psalm concludes with a turn toward praise and public proclamation. Once again, worship emerges as the final response to divine action. The vindication of the righteous leads not to bitterness but to testimony, and God's justice becomes the foundation for communal praise. The movement from lament to worship reinforces the idea that trust in God ultimately transforms suffering into renewed faith and public witness. Taken as a whole, Psalm 35 presents a deeply human portrait of suffering under injustice, expressed honestly before God. It affirms that believers may bring even the strongest emotions into prayer while still refusing personal retaliation. Instead, it directs all appeals for justice to God, trusting Him to judge rightly, defend the innocent, and ultimately bring about vindication that leads to praise rather than revenge.
Psalm 35, a Psalm of David. Plead my cause, O Lord, with those who strive with me. Fight against those who fight against me. Take hold of shield and buckler, and stand up for my help. Also draw out the spear, and stop those who pursue me. Say to my soul, I am your salvation. Let those be put to shame and brought to dishonor who seek after my life. Let those be turned back and brought to confusion who plot my hurt. Let them be like chaff before the wind, and let the angel of the Lord chase them. Let their way be dark and slippery, and let the angel of the Lord pursue them. For without cause they have hidden their net for me in a pit, which they have dug without cause for my life. Let destruction come upon him unexpectedly, and let his net that he has hidden catch himself. Into that very destruction let him fall. And my soul shall be joyful in the Lord, it shall rejoice in his salvation. All my bones shall say, Lord, who is like you? Delivering the poor from him who is too strong for him, yes, the poor and the needy from him who plunders him. Fierce witnesses rise up, they ask me things that I do not know. They reward me evil for good, to the sorrow of my soul. But as for me, when they were sick, my clothing was sackcloth. I humbled myself with fasting, and my prayer would return to my own heart. I paced about as though he were my friend or brother. I bowed down heavily as one who mourns for his mother. But in my adversity they rejoiced and gathered together. Attackers gathered against me, and I did not know it. They tore at me and did not cease. With ungodly mockers at feasts they gnashed at me with their teeth. Lord, how long will you look on? Rescue me from their destructions, my precious life from the lions. I will give you thanks in the great assembly. I will praise you among many people. Let them not rejoice over me who are wrongfully my enemies, nor let them wink with the eye who hate me without a cause. For they do not speak peace, but they devise deceitful matters against the quiet ones in the land. They also opened their mouth wide against me and said, Aha, aha, our eyes have seen it. This you have seen, O Lord. Do not keep silence. O Lord, do not be far from me. Stir up yourself and awake to my vindication, to my cause, my God and my Lord. Vindicate me, O Lord my God, according to your righteousness. And let them not rejoice over me. Let them not say in their hearts, Ah, so we would have it. Let them not say, We have swallowed him up. Let them be ashamed and brought to mutual confusion who rejoice at my hurt. Let them be clothed with shame and dishonor who exalt themselves against me. Let them shout for joy and be glad who favor my righteous cause. And let them say continually, Let the Lord be magnified, who has pleasure in the prosperity of his servant. And my tongue shall speak of your righteousness, and of your praise all the day long.